Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we are continuing on with our heavy-duty Knurling toolkit build series. Tonight in episode 5 we're going to be looking at the swivel pins. Here on the component identification page we can see the swivel pins called out as number 6. Each arm assembly gets a swivel pin. The pins swivel depending on the diameter of the work and allow the tensioning rod and knob to apply forces to the arm assemblies. Let's have a look at the drawing for the part itself. Okay, here we can see our drawing for the swivel pins. The upper swivel pin and the lower swivel pin. The only difference between the two is that one has a 5/16 hole and one is threaded 5/16 24 or 8mm hole or M8 by 1.25 thread. Swivel 2 required, one upper, one lower, from 3/4 inch ultra machinable 1215 steel, or if you prefer 19.1mm. We'll turn our swivel pins to be round first of all, and as the last operation will be to turn these flats. We'll turn the flats on the lathe. We'll talk about that more later. 15/16 overall length, a 3/4 inch gap between a 3/8 gap between our arm assemblies, or 9.5mm. This will be a close sliding fit for the holes that we reamed in the arm plates. 12.5 shown here, or 1/2 inch is ideal, but what we want is a close fit to the ream or to the drilled hole that we made in the arms. We want a nice close sliding fit. I think that's all we can say about it. Let's get over to the bench. Before we head over to the bench, let's just talk a little bit about order of operations. Our stock for the swivel pins comes as 4¼ inches long. So our first thing will be to split that stock into 2 equal parts. Then we will face all 4 ends so that we can get an accurate measurement on their length. We will face them to exact length. We will create the shoulders shown here. We'll break these edges on the outside of the shoulders. We'll drill and tap both swivel pins so that we can put them on a mandrel to create these flats. So that'll be the next thing, create the mandrel. Then we'll turn the flats top and bottom, and then we'll drill out our upper swivel pin so that it's able to slide up and down the tension rod. I'll show you a screenshot of the operations list. Here we are, operations. Split stock into 2 equal parts, face ends for accurate measurement, face to length, create our shoulders, break our edges, drill and tap. We'll create a mandrel so that we can turn our flats, and then we'll drill out the threads on the upper swivel. Okay, our arm assemblies are coming along nicely. Now we're going to work on our swivel pins. Here's the stock here. Let's get the drawings ready. Okay, hidden within here are 2 swivel pins. Our first order of operation, split stock into 2 equal parts. So I'm just going to put a Sharpie mark on here. 2 1/4, so 1 1/8. Now you can use a hacksaw, a bandsaw, a parting blade on the lathe. I prefer the Stanley 1299. Okay, here's my setup. I've got a couple of V blocks here. We have our stock sitting in the V blocks. We have our felt pen indication between the V blocks. Little cutting oil. And I find a fairly aggressive, firm pressure usually does it. Here goes. Oh, there. That went well. There we have our 2 pieces of stock. Our piece of stock split into 2 equal parts. The Stanley 1299. Okay, we have our work in the collet chuck. I have my parting blade here. I want to square that up with the work. Quite important. Right there. Lock my tool post holder down. Quick change tool post. Okay. Give her a little juice. Put the machine in gear. 190 RPM. We'll lock the carriage here. Lock my carriage. It looks like I'm using a crazy amount of cutting oil here. In reality, it's small drips coming out the end of my tube. The tube got messed up during use, as it does. So now I'm squeezing relatively hard, but I'm only getting small drops out. I quite like this arrangement. Arrangement by fluke. There we have it. I had just barely enough length in my blade. I was actually starting to rub, which is what you want. You want to be choked up as close as possible all the time. The 1215 is very nice to work with in that regard. That's a bit of a challenge. 1/16 wide blade. There's our stock divided in two. The beginning of the release of our swivel pins. Our piece of stock split into 2 equal parts. Alright, our next operation, face ends for accurate measurement. We're going to face our pins to an exact length. It doesn't matter. They stick out both sides of the arm assemblies here. Doesn't matter in the least. It's given as a fraction in the drawings, 15/16. But we're going to, just because we can, we're going to get this to exact length. Exactly 15/16. In order to do that, we have rough cut stock right now. We can't measure off of these rough ends, so we're going to give a nice finish to both ends. Let's go over to the lathe. (15/16) or 23.8 millimeters, or 0.9375. 0.9375. Okay, we have our stock in the collet chuck. I'm just going to clean this up by hand for starters, and then when we get close, I'll use power feed so that we get a really nice consistent finish. I'm at 460 RPM. Get rid of that right now. Lock my carriage and power feed. Very nice. Nothing wrong with that at all. I do have a tiny nub in the center. I'm going to move my tool up just a titch. I'm going to slide you back. quarter turn on the adjustment nut. We'll give that a try. Again, I'll massage it by hand and then do power feed. Of course, you wouldn't do that with a 3-jaw or a 4-jaw. It's a beauty, one of the beauties of the bone chuck. No nub this time. Oh, that's very nice. Okay, we have our second pin. Same thing, I'm just going to clean it up by hand for starters, then we'll do a pass with a power feed, just to make sure we get a nice finish. Had my carriage locked. Just gorgeous. Same again on this end. Very, very nice. So now we'll measure up our 2 pins, and off of these faces we can get exact measurements of how much needs to come off. Let's go over to the bench. Alright, I took the my diamond stone and just got rid of that tiny nub that was there. I used a diamond stone because I didn't have any fine sandpaper handy. Anyway, we've got our all 4 ends beautifully finished so that now we can measure off of them. I'm blessed I have a nice Mitutoyo caliper here. I got it a few months ago. It is an absolute joy to use. We're double checking that when we close the jaws it's reading 0. This type of caliper you can reset to 0 at any point, so we always have to double check. We'll look at the longer one here first of all. 1.110. 1.110. 1.110. 1. Beautiful consistent measurements. Doesn't matter how I turn it in there, a consistent measurement. Alright, we have our scratch pad here. Our project is the HDK heavy duty knurling tool, spacer pin, and the feature we're working on is the overall length. Size on the print is 0.937 or 23.8 millimeters. I've measured out my long pin and done the math, and it's 0.173 has to come off the longer pin and 0.117 off the shorter pin. Back to the lathe. Okay, turning to exact length, we have our stock in the collet chuck. I have my carriage stop snugged up a little bit on the ways, but it's still able to move. I'm going to bring my carriage gently up to the work. I'm going to bring in my dial indicator on this side, my magnetic back dial indicator. I'm going to set it carefully to 0. I'm exactly perpendicular to the carriage. This is my short pin, so I have to remove 0.117 off of here. So I'm going to advance my carriage and the carriage stop. 1, 17. Right there, I'm going to lock my carriage stop. I can move my indicator out of the way. So about 20 thousandths per pass. We'll just hog it off for starters. .460 RPM. Okay, so we're taking off about 20 thou at a pass here, just by hand. Now we're down to the final pass, and we're using a fine power feed to get a good finish, just as we did when we were polishing up those ends to begin with. My little cheat sheet here tells me that I was going for 0.937. We got troubles with our magnetic back dial indicator. We will see how we did. 0.937. That's reading 0.938. We'll take it, particularly since it doesn't matter at all. We're 1/1000th of an inch over. Human hair has a diameter of 3/1000. So not too bad for messing around in the basement. Okay, we're all set up here. We have our carriage stop set. We have our dial indicator set so that we can take roughly 20 cow off at a time. We're going to try and get you some high definition footage here. 460 RPM, 20,000ths at a pass. Last pass we'll go with a nice fine feed. It looks pretty nice, but it feels even nicer. We'll do a little bit of a file on the edge. Okay, we did well. We were shooting for 0.937 or 1.5 under there. We will live with that. So we have our 2 pins face to length. Big check mark there. Next operation is to create shoulders. Alright, our shoulders. The diameter of the shoulder is called out as 0.500 on the drawings. What we really want is a nice sliding fit inside of our arm assemblies. Nice sliding fit for ease of assembly and for smooth operation. My reamer was basically going right on 500 thousandths. For a nice sliding close fit, I'm going to shoot for 1 thou under. Minimum 1 thou under. The 0.5 diameter pin will not fit inside of a 0.5 diameter hole. Physically impossible. For something to slip inside something else, it must be smaller. 0.498, 0.499, somewhere in that range. Or 12.5 millimeters. You want to size it to whatever hole you've made in the arms. And the length of our shoulder is 9/32, or some 0.1 millimeters, or 0.281 of an inch. Here's our stock, our beautiful stock. Let's head over to the lathe. Okay, we have our work. In the collet chuck, I have my carriage stop loosely on the ways. We're going to set our carriage stop for the length of our shoulder. 281 thousandths. There's our tool up against the work. Here's my dial indicator over here. I'm going to set that to exactly 0 and make it exactly perpendicular to the carriage. Come off the work. 100, 200, 81 right there. Our length is set. We can now turn our attention to the diameter. GoPro, stop recording. Okay, I'm just finding the edge of my work with the cross slide here. Now I'm going to advance my cross slide 20 thousandths, and I'm going to set my cross slide dial to exactly 0. We're going to take that cut, then we're going to measure, and we'll see, this will get us a baseline so that we can see where we need to be. About a 20 thousandths cut, a nice fine power feed for a good finish, and then we'll measure up. Back away from the work. Looks like a nice finish. And we'll take a measurement here. Okay, we have our scratch pad here. Our project is the HDK Swivel Pin, heavy duty knurler. The feature we're working on is the shoulder diameter. We want the shoulder to be 0.498 or 12.5 millimeters. We just took a pass with our cross slide dial set to 0. It came out to 725. That means we have 0.227 to come off. I'm going to go do some roughing at 25 thou a pass. I'll take 200 of our 227 off, and then we will revisit our measurements. Back to 0 again on our dial. Brings us to just as we would suspect, 525. So we need to take 27 thousandths off. I think I'll take 20 and then 7. That's showing 3 thousandths under half an inch. Yes, so that should be a nice fit for this hole. Yeah. I'm not feeling any movement there to speak of, a little tiny bit, but that's okay. This one feels even snugger. I feel no movement on that one. So we have our diameter established. I'm going to tighten up a little bit and say that we want to be at 26 on our dial. There, boom. So our 3 remaining shoulders we'll use 26 in our dial for our diameter. We have to reset the length every time because we have no stop in the collet right now. I find that it's not accurate enough anyway. Here's a collet stop. This threads into the back of the collet. Work rests up against here. Our method is more accurate, I find. Okay, we have to set our length again. I'm up against the work with my tool. I bring in my dial indicator. Set it to 0. Make it completely perpendicular. Advance my carriage 0.281. 1, 2, 81. Set my carriage stop. 0.281 of an inch or 7.1 millimeters. Now we know where we want to be at with our diameter. Very nice. Okay, we got a double here. We created our shoulders and we broke the edges. Next thing we'll do is we'll go over to the mill drill and drill and tap these holes through our pins. Okay guys, here we are at the mill drill. We have our work set on parallels in the vise here. We're going to have to shut her down for now. The video is getting too long. We'll do a two-parter. When we come back, we will drill and tap our 5/16 thread in there. Take care guys. The second half will come out quickly after the first half. Take care. Thanks for watching. Link to my store in the description. You can pick yourself up a heavy duty knurling kit as well as other cool tools for your shop. Take care. Thanks for watching.